Welcome to Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm Drew's co-host, entertainment writer Jim Hill, and he and I are recording the show on Monday, November 9th, 2020. So, how you doing, Drew?
It's a real roller coaster of emotion where this weekend we had a really high, and now we're sort of coming down to earth and realizing how prolonged and potentially upsetting this whole thing is going to be. So I'm feeling a little bit more like last Tuesday than this past Saturday, but I'm still optimistic it'll all get sorted out.
I mean, it was a very, very stressful week. But the interesting thing, what came to mind to me is that Daniel Pinkwater, who does the book reviews over at NHPR, told this great story about the week of 9/11, where every time you turned on the television, they kept showing that footage of the towers coming down. Eventually, Daniel was like, I have to get away from this. I have to not watch this. And he ended up over on Nickelodeon watching SpongeBob. And the way Daniel talks, SpongeBob was basically his life raft for that couple of weeks where life was terrible. And so I didn't watch Nickelodeon, but I did go over to YouTube. And it turns out there are dozens of clips there right now, Drew, for the SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run. And mind you, you kind of have to treat the movie like a mosaic because you'll get one clip from this part of the movie, another clip from that part of the movie. I guess this comes on the back of Sponge on the Run was released theatrically in Canada in August and then dropped on Netflix in all territories except the United States back on the 5th. And so, and it's set to debut here in the States till early 2021, which is when Sponge on the Run first becomes a premium video on demand. And then after that becomes available for viewing through CBS All Access.
Which will probably it'll probably be renamed Paramount Plus by then. So we even,
there we go.
That's how long this is going to take to get to America. Yeah.
But based on these clips, Drew, I really, really, really now want to see Sponge on the Run. Movie is directed and co-written by Tim Hill, no relation. Tim was the original series writer back when SpongeBob SquarePants debuted on Nick back in July of 99. And oh my God, there are so many great set pieces in this thing that there's one piece alone that if you need a laugh, if you need entertainment, go seek this out. There's a bit in the movie where, for various reasons, SpongeBob, Patrick, Sandy, Mr. Krabs, Squidward, and Plankton are running away from this group of guards, and they climb into this giant suit of armor, all of them, and they all settle into different parts of the suit of armor, and they then proceed to battle the guards as this coordinated attack inside of the suit of armor, and it is just one of the funniest pieces of staging I've seen in years. And also just bit of a rendering. This thing is crazy good. And then to sort of add to, have you heard about Keanu Reeves in this thing?
I mean, I saw that he was a sagebrush in the trailer. So
he's an all-knowing sage who, as the movie goes on, gets less and less patient with SpongeBob and Patrick. And I really, really, really don't want to blow too much of this movie. To be honest, given the millions of clips that are on YouTube right now, it's getting blown quite well. I will say this much, lots and lots of scenes set at Camp Coral. So looking at this, you can't help but think, okay, this was meant to introduce the spin-off series Camp Coral, SpongeBob's Underyears. But is that supposed to be hand-drawn or CG? Because I've seen renderings of the characters in both formats.
I thought it was CG, but maybe not. I mean, if you've seen artwork, but that could have just been pre-production artwork. Okay. Yeah, but I thought it was CG. That's what I'd always heard, but I have no idea.
Seriously, this movie deserves to be celebrated. But on the other hand, the film's director, Tim Hill, just can't hide his disappointment. He was interviewed by Looper earlier in the year saying, "It's terrible. I was hoping for a big fanfare and a great premiere and seeing all the people I worked with and doing a cast and crew screening, being able to at least thank people. And that never happened. It was just like we're doing now. Bye. Movie's over. It doesn't feel natural." But seriously, folks, you need a lift. Go over to YouTube. Weren't you just saying that the whole movie's there in like 30 little parts or
Yeah, I never would tell anyone to watch a bootlegged movie, but you can watch the whole thing on YouTube. So I'm not going to say that that's what I'm going to do when the show's over, but I
Okay.
might. So stay TBD for those thoughts. Yeah.
That would be not a very nice thing to do. And speaking of
No.
things that are not necessarily very nice to do, but still entertaining, did you see what Alex Hirsch did this weekend?
Oh yeah, I love Alex.
All right. Well, do you want to tell the story about what he did?
Yeah. Well, as you know, the Trump campaign is launching this insane, very stupid hotline where you're supposed to call and talk about if you've seen voter fraud. And so he decided to call. You say that it's Zeus. I think it's Zeus-like voice and talking about how he saw the Hamburglar come into a voting booth and steal some votes. But it's so funny.
What's great is Alex peels the onion slowly, and it's like, well, I saw a guy, had a black hat, and he was wearing a mask,
Right?
And he had a striped shirt.
He had a striped shirt on,
And he was stuffing votes in a bag while saying "rumble, rumble," and it's like,
Right.
And then to end it with, "And can I now speak to Giuliani?" And it's like, oh.
Yes, and he does it again with the Uncle Stan voice, and he actually says, "My name is, Stan Pines," and it's great. And then today, the Washington Post wrote up this whole farce and included Alex's prank calls in their write-up, which is so great. So yeah, check that out. Another little smile.
Well, again, that's the Washington Post. That's the news. And again, speaking of the news portion of today's show is brought to you by Storybook Destinations, trusted travel partner of Fine Tuning. For a worry-free travel experience, book online at StorybookDestinations.com. So it's been a week to give you the feels, the high highs, the low lows. And speaking of the fields, where did you find this Make-A-Wish commercial from Disney? When did that bubble up?
It was on Twitter. Obviously, I sort of follow a lot of similarly minded folk. But Jim, do you have any insight into why Christmas commercials are such a big deal in England?
Yes, it seems like every year there is the commercial. Now, mind you,
Yes.
a lot of companies compete for the commercial.
Right.
This one for Make-A-Wish, it's honoring the 40th year that Disney has partnered with Make-A-Wish. It prominently features a Mickey plush, which evidently when a child arrives at the Give Kids the World village, they're gifted a Mickey plush.
Yeah, it's a Filipino family, too, in the short, which is very interesting and great.
Just go see it and bring Kleenex.
Yes. But I will tell you that, and this may be crossing over into your show with Shelley, but you can buy that plush with the traditional Filipino star on the bottom of Mickey's foot on the Disney Store right now. So yes, if you really want to prolong those feels, you can do
Now,
that.
speaking of which, as long as we're plugging charities and the season, Nancy and I were at the Disney Store to see what they had going into the holidays. And it turns out, because of just how miserable 2020 is, obviously the Toys for Tot collection places can't operate the way they normally do during a pandemic. So the Disney Store has actually stepped up. They've become a collection point for Toys for Tots. And not only that, every time a toy is donated, Disney will donate a toy plus give $1 to Toys for Tots.
That's great. And I got to tell you, in normal circumstances, I would have a lot of toys from junkets and things like that. And it's always hard to figure out where they are. I usually walk down to Warner Brothers and drop it off there. But it's great to know that they're doing that, because sometimes you have a lot of stuff and you just don't know where to drop it off. So that's great.
Now to pivot to the Aardman ad, we shoehorn 2 franchises in there. We get Wallace and Gromit, and we also get the Shaun the Sheep character.
Which was a spin-off of Wallace and Gromit. We have to,
Was it Close Shave or which was?
Yeah, it was Close Shave.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I was looking at the ad, and I wonder how successful an ad is when you finish watching the ad. And again, this is an ad for the UK, and I'm sure people in the UK and all already know what DFS is. But I was watching the ad, and I thought it was for a heating company. You actually got it in one.
Yes. Well, I looked at the acronym and I used my deduction skills, Jim, and I said, oh, this must be some kind of discount furniture store, which you told me is exactly what it stands for.
That's right.
So
That's right. Okay.
I feel smart, Jim. Thank you so much for, validating me.
I went the other way. Poor Gromit is outside freezing. He looks inside at this family around a fire, and I just discount furnace company. I was wrong.
Here's my question. Was that Peter Sallis that is the voice? Because he retired from the character a few years ago, but that really sounds like him. Doesn't it?
We'll have to pick.
Okay, I've got it. I've already found out. It's the guy named Ben Whitehead.
Oh, okay. All
because I guess Peter Sallis is dead. So that is this is me realizing things on air, Jim. I thought he was still alive. But he's dead, and he's got a great replacement because I could not tell, really, the difference. So,
which animated character did they do? Wasn't it the Mickey short CG with Eric Goldberg?
Yes.
Get a Horse. The idea was it was all going to be Walt's voice, and I want to say they were able to get every word except red.
Yes, correct.
There we go. And some sound person sat in a room and micro-sliced words that Walt said to form the word red. So they could have done the same thing with Peter. They could have. All right. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm not willing to climb out on that limb with you. All right. So speaking of cold things, okay. So we got the teaser for Fox's The Great North, which is supposed to debut in 2021 as part of Fox's animation domination, right?
Yeah, they were like, it's a new member of animation domination. Did you watch the Simpsons Halloween episode, by the way, this year, Jim?
With the Pixar parody?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. The weird part of it is once you sort of zeroed in on what they were doing, I mean, it was a wonderful Venn diagram. They really did get that Pixar feel to the animation. I want to know the story there. I want to know, especially now that Disney and Pixar and Fox are all one big happy family, did they actually have conversations about, can we use your software? Can you tell us how you did the stuff for Toy Story 4? It just had a beautiful feel to it.
Yeah, I love when they also go into different mediums. Obviously, there was the famous CG episode where Homer is in the CG world from, I don't know, 10, 20 years ago.
Remember that Homer ends up in the real world and he's, ooh, erotic cakes. And it's like, I couldn't help but think that store was probably around the corner from Four Seasons Landscaping.
Yeah, I think so.
So what did you think from the Great North thing? I mean, face it, it's going to be hard to top Bob's Burgers or for that matter, Central Park. By the way, do we have an ETA on season 2 of that yet?
No, we're going to have to get Josh back on the show, I think.
Because Josh created it with Lauren and Nora Smith. And speaking of things that are going to be hard to top, all right, how are we going to talk about the end of season 1 of Primal, Rage of the Ape Men? How are we going to talk about this without giving away?
Well, this new one is Slave of the Scorpion. Rage of the Ape Man was the last one.
Yeah, okay, my mistake. Okay, because Rage of the Ape Man last year, an amazing cliffhanger. Now Slave of the Scorpion, same thing. Amazing place to leave the story.
Yes, we can. It is a huge cliffhanger. I just think that this second batch of episodes, each one got better and better and better than the one before it. I mean, it was just amazing. The storytelling, the assuredness in that storytelling, the visuals. I just thought the whole thing was amazing. I can't wait for it to come back. It's going to be a long wait.
Yeah, it is. It is. But speaking of not wanting to give away things, The Art of Soul became available for purchase back on October 27th, and I ordered a copy. Having read the book already, The Art of Soul, I have to say it is no Art of Onward, which, by the way, folks, Black Friday special over at Amazon right now. You can pick up a copy of The Art of Onward. List price, $40. It's available right now for $17.99.
Go get it, people.
Yes. So anyway, all right. What can we say about Soul?
I've seen Soul, so that's what Jim is hinting at, is that I've watched it. I've seen it twice now. I did the junket today. I mean, I'm all over Soul. And Jim, you came out of the gate before we started talking, and you spoiled the big twist of the movie, which I will not do.
Okay,
here.
I'm sorry.
I will not do it.
I read the book. It's there.
I can't believe you deduced that from the book, because his art of books are typically much more art focused than some of the other ones, like the one that I did, which has a lot of text.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just impressed you kind of put things together. Maybe it was you watching the SpongeBob movie piecemeal on YouTube.
There we go. There we go. Yes. Okay.
Well, the thing I want to convey is that this is the most mature Pixar movie. It deals with really heavy stuff in a really wonderful, light, Pixar-y way. Mm-hmm. But Pixar is so infamous for its commitment to story and everything tying up every loose end. There are no seams. And this movie really embraces kind of the messiness of life and the kind of weird tangents that you go on and the conversations that you have walking down the street. And it's really beautiful for that. It's incredibly powerful. And it's just one of my favorite things I've seen all year. I know that is admittedly a low bar to clear, considering there were about 3 movies released this year, but it is, it's a really special movie. And I think that people are going to have really wonderful, memories this year of gathering around the TV at Christmas and watching Soul. You will cry, so just bear that in mind. But it's really wonderful. Yeah.
Well, speaking of wonderful piece of animation, and again, thanks to Drew who found this, but Greenpeace has a great ad out right now called "There's a Monster in My Kitchen." It's only 2 minutes long, if that.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah,
it's about kind of the dangers of industrial farming, basically, and a monster that's slowly revealed to be a cougar from the jungle, and it's directed by Tom Moore, who we will soon be talking to, and it's animated by Cartoon Saloon, and it actually plays in front of Wolfwalkers in some territories.
Does it really?
Yeah, around the world, yeah. When I talked to him ahead of its premiere at Toronto, they were just finishing the short, so it's very moving too, I think, and yeah, it's really wonderful.
Okay, well, definitely check that out. And speaking again of the folks at Cartoon Saloon, when you come back for the second half of the show, folks, boy, do we have a treat for you. That we're going to get to talk with the folks who are working on Cartoon Saloon's big new project, Wolfwalkers.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Introducing Meta Ray-Ban Display, the world's most advanced AI glasses. With a full color display built into the lens of the glasses, it's there when you need it and gone when you don't. Send and receive messages, translate or caption live conversations, collaborate with Meta AI, and more. Be one of the first to try Meta Ray-Ban Display. Visit meta.com/Meta Ray-Ban Display to book a demo and find your pair.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana.
You have a piece up this week on Collider about Chicken Little that is such a great piece of writing. Is it this week that it's the 50th anniversary?
I think it was last week, but I think we didn't want to publish it on the date because, people had other things to worry about last week.
They did.
Yeah, it went up today. I appreciate you reading, Jim. It took a lot to kind of fuse all these kind of jagged edges together to tell this story, because it really is an important movie in the history of the company and was made in a completely horrible, turbulent time for animation.
I think the thing that I hadn't put together that you put it out so well is, think about it, Mark Dindal and Randy Fulmer had just come off of The Emperor's New Groove, which had been the Hindenburg of animation. The fact that the Kingdom of the Sun, the movie that they were trying to make there, the important film, just kind of imploded. And the fact that they were able to take the pieces of that movie and make as entertaining a film as The Emperor's New Groove is. And so, here were these two guys who had survived that. And now, okay, we're going to, get the chance to make our movie. And the way you tell the story about, here's Mark Tyndale, the father of daughters, and so anxious to make a movie that stars a little girl. And look who they were going to have voice the little girl.
Yeah, it was going to be Holly Hunter, and Penn Jillette was going to be in it. And it was sort of like you pulled off the impossible, now do it again. Mm-hmm. Because it was sort of sabotaged halfway through by Michael Eisner, and they had to rebuild. And they said to me, mm-hmm. We had just as much time in the end to finish this as we did Emperor's New Groove. And at the same time, we're teaching everyone how to use CGI and rebuilding the story and dealing with David Staten, who was the third manager they'd had in 3 years, and it's like, it was just a tough thing. But I want to tell people too that I talked to Mark Tyndale and I talked to Randy Fulmer. Mm-hmm. And I actually also talked to them about Emperor's New Groove, which is celebrating an anniversary in December. So you are going to hear stories you have never heard before, including, if I can just tease Jim, at one point, he and who was the original director on the Kingdom of the Sun? It was Roger Allers.
There we go. Okay.
So Mark was the co-director with Roger. Mm-hmm. And at one point, the production shut down, and Roger pitched one version of the movie, and Mark pitched another version of the movie, and neither one knew that the other was pitching their version. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that's one of the stories, Jim, that you're going to get out of this. But, I mean, the statute of limitations on spilling tea has expired, so get ready for that.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, I can't wait for that one. But seriously, folks, if you want a great read about an amazing time in Disney Studios, this arrived in theaters November 2005, and literally 6 weeks later, Disney buys Pixar. And the world changes, which anybody who listened to our Hunter show, by the way, which had wonderful, Bob Hilgenberg, who came on the show and gave us all the history of Circle 7, studios. That was going on at the same time that poor Chicken Little was trying to arrive in theaters.
Yeah. Steve Jobs was, making scandalous remarks in the paper about eyes. I mean, it was crazy. Yeah. But anyway, check out the story. It'll give you an appreciation for what Chicken Little is, and it'll help you understand maybe some of its shortcomings. So, yeah.
And remember, in this same window of time is when Pixar's Cars comes out. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the old NPR show Card Talk with Click and Clack, the Tappet brothers, Tom and Ray Malianzi. But we lost, of course, Tom a few years back, but his brother has continued the show. They kind of do a best of, but he also has been doing a newspaper column. And just recently, somebody wrote to him and said, is there a story behind the Cars that Tom and Ray were depicted in the Cars movies? And Tom actually shares this story. Yeah, there is a story behind those cars. Pixar was making the original Cars movie. They called and they asked us to be in it. John Lasseter was very into cars and wanted to know what about meaningful cars we'd had in our life. So in this case, my brother Tom, he chose his then current car, which is a 63 Dodge Start convertible, which would rust on the windows, and a family of raccoons that lived in the back. On the other hand, Ray, I have fond memories of my 67 Dodge A100 window van. And they were talking about, well, how do we make these characters different? And back in the 70s, there was this company called Earl Scheib that would paint a car for $49.99. So anyway, that's where Dusty and Rusty, the Rustys brothers, came from. That there was a combination of Ray and Tom's favorite cars from when they were kids, and them paying tribute to Earl Scheib. I'll paint your car for $49.99. So we now make the awkward transition from rusty cars to wolves.
Here's the transition.
Okay.
You're the only person in the world still reading a physical newspaper. And now we are going to ancient Ireland. So this is we're going back in time, Jim.
That's right. I'm sitting here surrounded by pieces of parchment
Yes,
and stone tablets. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Please. All right.
Yes, we are going to talk to Tom Moore and Ross Stewart, who directed Wolfwalkers, the amazing new Cartoon Saloon film, traditionally animated plus computer animation, and a crazy international production between Cartoon Saloon and Miss Mel Usine Productions, which is a Luxembourg-based company. And this is just one of my favorite animated movies of the year. It's going to be on Apple TV Plus on December 11th. And so we are going to talk with them for a little while about this brand new movie.
I love what I've seen of Wolfwalkers so far. It is, again, I'm a huge fan of the Kells, likewise Song of the Sea, but oh my God, this one's amazing.
Thanks very much.
So I love the tie back to the Salem witch trials, how you guys kind of use that as your jumping off point. By the way, before I forget, Ross, I know you worked on Paranorman, did some art direction on that one, and you guys absolutely nailed Salem, Massachusetts. You got that depressed community that something happened 300 years ago down cold, So
I remember Chris and Nelson and Sam, they went over there on like a fact-finding mission, and they brought back loads of photos of beautiful forests, but loads of photos of really decrepit buildings and things falling apart. And they're like, that's what we need to do in there.
Seriously, there's that scene where Norman is walking down the street, and I swear to God, that's the street my aunt lives on.
But it was interesting when we were doing research for this that anybody from Kilkenny around Salem at the time was immediately under suspicion of being a werewolf. Because of the stories, and we didn't know that those stories were so prevalent back then. I was a little tidbit that stuck out because Ross had just finished working on Paranormal. I remember coming across that in our research.
Yeah, we did a lot of research into the witch trials and witchcraft and a lot of dark areas, and we had to just steer away.
There was witch burnings and stuff in early drafts, and there were witch burnings here in Kilkenny, but all of that stuff was way too dark for where we wanted to go, and we kind of focused on they're called the Wolf People of Ossory, or the Man Wolves of Ossory, which is the area that includes Kilkenny. It was like the old medieval kind of area. And those folktales are so localized to this area, and they're so connected to the wolves that were exterminated by the English at that time, that a lot of the folktales have been kind of forgotten as well,
One of the films that we watched for research actually was The Witch. That I think it came out about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Just the Puritan dress and costumes and the whole world that they live in is just like exactly of the time. But I remember some of our storyboarders who had just started working, and the concept artists.
What the hell kind of movie are you making?
Yeah, we sat them down in front of The Witch and we're like, now watch this.
For kids.
I love how you clearly delineate the world, that sort of woodblock, angular, gray and brown palette for the town. And then, but when you step out into the forest, it's this lovely, lush fall colors and the rounded shapes and all that. You do such a nice job of delineating the two worlds the story's told in.
Well, as we were developing the story, we were also developing the visual style in tandem with that. And it became pretty clear that we needed two contrasting worlds, one that represented the control and the cage of Robin, and then the other one that represented this freedom and life and instinct of the wolves. And each decision visually had to reinforce that contrast. So when Tom and myself were even doing concept really, really early on, we were developing this harsh, angular woodcut style for the town, and this rounded, beautiful, kind of free-flowing, impressionistic color of the forest, and trying to see how far we could push them apart, but also keep them in the same world. There's a very fine line to go there. If they had been too different looking, then it would have seemed like she was walking into a dream or something like that. So they had to be rooted in the same world that way.
I wanted to ask about the approach to magic because I love it. And if this was an American movie, there would be a 10-minute exposition dump of
somebody going, well, when she's asleep, she becomes a wolf and this and that, and you allow the characters to kind of discover the kind of mythology for themselves. Was that a deliberate decision? And how did you kind of figure out how to parcel out the information through the movie?
That came after several, and I don't think I've done a movie yet that didn't have an exposition intro written and storyboarded that we cut. I don't know why. I mean,
really?
I've always looked at, like Watership Down has that lovely Aboriginal style opening that explains everything. But yeah, we kind of just realized that we wanted to discover everything with Robin. So all you get is that little hint at the beginning. And there's a version of it that we did in the comic books of what was planned as the intro to why it all is. And then Apple made we helped them with it. They made a little prologue teaser thing to explain it on social media, because in the movie we just kind of dump people in it and you have to keep up, and I think that's kind of fun too. I feel like Ghibli do that a lot.
And it puts you in her position too, right?
Yeah.
Because she's discovering.
You're not ahead of her.
Right.
There's a couple of things that like you don't actually figure out or understand how it works, like the magic vines. Like, how the hell do they work?
we had a whole reason for that, and again, we just sort of let it feel right. And it happened with Song of the Sea as well. We had this whole bit in Song of the Sea where the fairies in the roundabout explained the rules of why she needed to get her go. And we realized it's not important. It's real adult sort of thinking, kid thinking, dreamlike thinking. It just flows. The emotion, what's needed, what needs to happen happens. And I think hand-drawn animation allows you to do that. I don't think live action would be as forgiving.
And then I think like when we were working with Will Collins, the scriptwriter, the three of us really hate that exposition stuff where it's so obvious that you're speaking to the audience like, oh, what is this place? Oh, this must be a magic fortress, and why am I here? So like we want to steer clear from that as much as possible. And like stuff can be explained, but in terms of like dialogue between characters, like, but
we had built it in. We'd built a lot of the exposition in to a parallel story of Maeve and her mom and why her mom had to go off and how she got captured and everything. And in the end, we had to strip that all back, and we only discover it at the same time Robin does. So I guess if we did a longer movie or if it was a serial or something, we could have gone in that direction. But yeah. I like it in Ghibli movies when they do that. They just dunk you in and then you're like, oh, that can happen. Okay.
Yeah. Do you test these movies on kids? I mean, okay. So you make sure that they can at least keep up with things.
Oh yeah. And usually we haven't changed things too dramatically, luckily, but we would note if they didn't understand something or if something needed to be clear. One of the things that came back from the first test screening is that the kids didn't actually understand that Robin was English and that she was from England. They didn't catch that, and we thought it was really obvious from the costume, the accent and everything. So we kind of laid that in a bit thicker with the bullies early on when they kind of say English girl and listen to her fancy accent and stuff. So, but other than that, the kids, they swallow it whole.
There was one kid who said there was too much drama.
Yeah, too much drama.
That was one of our most harsh critics from early on, So.
These are great critics because they're honest,
Well, no. Speaking of the early iterations of the film, I saw that at one point or very, very early on, Robin was a boy. How long did that stick?
Well, not really into even boards. Like we had designs for her as a boy, but even in the script or the second draft of the script, we realized it just wasn't working. We were creating conflict that didn't naturally exist in that world for him to not be allowed to go hunting, for him to... And once it became a girl, it had a whole other layer of the theme of becoming who you need to be against society telling you not to. It made so much more sense with a little girl in that time period. So a lot of things clicked into place. And also the contrast between a kind of semi-imagined pagan matriarchy that we were setting up on one side and then the Puritan patriarchy all made so much more sense if it was a little girl caught between those two worlds rather than a little boy. So didn't last too long, and I was kind of relieved because it would have been the third time we'd done. I remember Nora saying it to me like, are you trying to say something about little boy, like little human boy and a little magic girl? So I was like, oh yeah, that is a bit lame to do that again. So,
and also if Robin had been a boy, Lord Protector would have written out and gone, is this your son? he's going to help you with the wolf hunt.
Yeah,
Look,
that's what I mean.
bye, the end.
That's what I mean. Like it was wrong-headed at the start that we thought that way. But I'm glad we kept the Robin Goodfellow name because I thought it was fun, even if it was a girl. And Robin works for both a boy or a girl. So.
You want to talk about how you pulled off the wolf vision? Jim and I were talking before the show, and he was equally stunned as I was by those sequences.
Yeah, it's magic.
It is.
The thing that's particularly impressive, and as great as it looks, when I heard the story about how you guys did it, it's like, oh my God, it looks great. And it was also impossible. I mean,
it was insane.
Yeah.
It was crazy. But I think there's a kind of masochistic aspect to animators that they take great pleasure in saying how complicated and difficult it was to do something. It's part of the war stories the animators trade in the pub afterwards.
Yeah, like for the trailer that we did, like maybe 5 years back, we had this amazing animator, Emmanuel Basquiat. Is that how you pronounce the second name? And he like did this fly through of a forest, but he did it all with like animating a grid, a geometric grid first, and then going in and doing all the trees on top of it. And like he's just like a genius with that. And that took ages to do, but we kind of didn't want to make it like so insanely
like,
terrible for animators to have to like actually like do this.
We're not Japanese animation directors. Like we are like human.
Yeah. So like working with Evan McNamara, who works with Paper Panther Studios up in Dublin, he does a lot of traditional media approach to animation, and he's quite inventive, like in terms of like using craft and technology to explore new types of animation. So we have footage of him actually trying on these VR goggles, and it was the first time that he had worked in VR, and he was painting these trees in this landscape just in a VR program. And then he would do a camera previs fly through, and then each frame would get printed out, and then they would all be rendered background, character, and effects.
Lord, look at that.
So that's just a few seconds of it, yeah. Aww. But each frame is a full background, drawn in pencil.
So we have a big stack of these downstairs, and like every page is like something that you could probably frame. So it's a huge labor of love for that team. And it was only 3 minutes of the film, but it took about nearly the whole length.
Because any one of those pages would be the amount of work that would go into an average background, just the drawing part.
Mm-hmm.
Does doing a completely CGI feature hold any appeal to either of you?
No. You wouldn't be able to tell any war stories. Be too easy.
Well, speaking of war stories, I mean, I love that you made Oliver Cromwell the villain. What was it? In 2002, he was voted one of the top 10 Britons of all time.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
That's what they think.
There was a communal outrage that just lifted up from Ireland at that time. That it was, what?
He's our Adolf Hitler, and he's their Braveheart. So I think we backed away from calling him Oliver Cromwell. People know that it's Cromwell, and he gets referred to as Ironsides, and he has the warts and everything. But he's an aspect of Cromwell. He's a colonial Puritan force imposing itself on the wilderness. So he's a fairy tale distillation of Cromwell, not the complex creature that he was, darling man that he was.
Yeah, because historically, Cromwell did said about the extermination of wolves in Ireland, and he used to offer rewards of £5 for a wolf's head or a wolf's pelt. Like he literally wanted them all wiped out from the island because he saw it as part of a symbol of how uncivilized the country was, that they still had wolves. The wolves were already extinct in the UK. And then also,
that was news to us. Like we knew he was pretty brutal in Ireland, but we didn't realize at the start of our research that he was instrumental in like symbolically taming the country by exterminating wolves. So we thought that was pretty interesting.
And he also chopped down a lot of the native woodlands. Like Ireland only has less than 10% of woodland covering the country. It's really low by European standards. And a lot of that is traced back to that time. So for our story of Wolfwalkers, of the woods being cut down and the wolves being exterminated, he was the perfect villain. Aside from the fact that he is the villain of Ireland, like, historically, like he caused so much.
There's curses
horror.
and stuff. It was kind of fun to read old curses. May the curse of Cromwell be upon you.
Yeah.
All this kind of stuff.
But we didn't want to get drawn too much into the historical sides because then you start annoying historians, and no one wants to do that.
Last time we chatted, you guys were working on that little short. I think you were like in the midst of it, and now it's out. And I just wanted to say how wonderful it was.
Oh, thanks.
And can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, as we're chatting, there's posters for it over there. We were doing some press on it a few weeks ago. Yeah, I don't know. It was sad that that it's so relevant. I think I said that to you before, that the Jaguar could almost be the modern day equivalent of the wolf in Ireland. Yeah,
yeah,
because it's the same story, and it's still happening. And there's still that in Bolsonaro. You see another autocratic leader who's using a lot of the worst impulses of people to motivate them, and we're losing a lot more than the Jaguar when we lose the Amazon, even if it's sad in itself. So I mean, I'm glad that we made the film, and I'm glad it's out there, and I think it's forcing a conversation. It hasn't been easy. I've had plenty of people come after me on Twitter. I think it's hard for people to hear that they're somehow implicit in what's going on there, but we're all responsible, unfortunately, for the destruction of the Amazon and the wild places. It's just something is still stirred up in our consumerist colonial culture that still seems to think that nature is ours to just exploit rather than to live alongside and respect. So
it's a beautifully observed and animated jaguar, but at the same time, the wolves, I've got to tell you, we have a wolf sanctuary here in New England that I periodically go down to, and you guys nailed the wolves. I mean, I love, there's just a little short scene where the Mabe is unsure and she's on wolf form, and you flatten her ears and her tail wraps around her feet, and it's just sort of like, that's dead on from what they do in the wolf sanctuary. I mean, how much research and that sort of thing did you guys do?
Well, I don't know if you stayed to watch the end of the credits, but there's a little thing, Wolf Consultants, and they're all the studio dogs that are in Cartoon Saloon, from big to small, and all sizes in between. And so there's a lot of the animators here and a lot of the storyboarders. They have their own dogs, and they love dogs, and they're always watching the behaviors as well. And then as part of the production of Wolfwalkers, we had Aaron Blaze do workshops here. We had James Baxter do a workshop.
Yeah, James animated a couple of scenes, and Aaron helped with the early designs. So they're like super quadruped expert animators, and that was exciting for the animators there. But we also had really great animators here that, maybe they didn't work on big fancy Disney movies, but they've dedicated themselves to that kind of animation. And like Anita is amazing.
Yeah, and then
observation.
Even like looking at, like, we all looked at research videos of canine and lupine behavior and seeing what they do, like the play bow and the thing of the flattening the ears. And there's some, like, they express their emotions much more physically than we do, with their anatomy. So I think it was like part of the entire team really focused on that and wanted to get it accurate. Just out of interest, is that Wolf Sanctuary the Wolf Conservation Center?
I believe that is the name. This is the one in Beverly, Massachusetts. Wolf Hollow, I want to say.
I think the one that I was talking about is in New Jersey.
I went to one in Alberta in Canada, and they just fed all the wolves, so they were all just sleeping. And it was a long drive. I was at a music festival in Vancouver, and I drove for like a day. And then I got to the wolf sanctuary, and they were all like,
"Were you one of those spectators? Go and wake them up!"
I drove all day, poked them with a stick. My arm.
Well, I know this was a 5-year journey, but have you started thinking about what's next? Or is it just like, no way?
Yeah, we're lucky. This is the first time for me that I haven't had to have another project go to keep the studio alive, because the studio is busy. We have the Puff and Rock feature in production. We have Nora's movie for Netflix, My Father's Dragon, and a big TV series for Apple. So we're like busy as heck. So it's good for me and Ross. We can take a bit of a breather before we decide what we do next.
Getting that Apple cash. I love to hear it.
Yeah.
Stacking that paper. Thank you guys so much. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, and love the movie so much. So thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
By the way, folks, Wolfwalkers will be out in theaters this weekend, thanks to the folks at G-Kids. It's going to be in theaters from Friday, November 13th through Sunday, November 15th. On the other hand, if you have Apple TV, it's going to debut over there on September 11th. By the way, Wolfwalkers is the very first animated feature to launch on Apple TV+. And a side note here, for a film that celebrates Ireland, it's kind of tough that Wolfwalkers' theatrical release in Ireland has been laid till later this year due to the fact that the cinemas over there are closed due to COVID. But they can take advantage of the Wolfwalkers graphic novel, which becomes available on December 1st. Samuel Satin did the adaptation, and it features an introduction and exclusive artwork by the film creator Tom Moore, as well as the co-art director, Maria Pargis. All right. Well, in December, between that on the 11th and Soul dropping on the 25th, lots of good stuff. So, and speaking of lots of good stuff, that if you follow Drew at all, you know about his Light the Fuse podcast, which pays tribute to the history of not only the Mission Impossible film series, but also the television show. And, just amazed at the people you get to come on this podcast. So
are we, Jim. So are we.
All right. So what have we got coming up with now?
This week we'll have the second part of our Giacchino interview. Mm-hmm. I think this is the one where he tells the story about Space Mountain. So everyone's going to want to hear that. It's an amazing story. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I think we have Leslie Ann Warren coming up. We have Greg Grunberg. We have so many episodes banked. Mm-hmm. It's really astounding. But so we are just going to keep on going. And then we'll have the Light the Wick miniseries next year. So, get ready for that.
Okay. And have you started work yet on the Top Gun stuff, or is that...
No, we're going to have to do that closer to release. Although I did just talk to Joseph Kosinski a couple weeks ago. I'm working on a huge... If you thought my Chicken Little story was robust, Jim, wait until my Tron Legacy story, because I have uncovered it all, and it is great. And so I've talked to so many people, including Joe. And so that'll be coming in December on Collider. So get ready for that.
Killer. Okay, well, we also do a few things over here at Jim Hill Media. We got Disney Dish with Len Testa. We got Universal Joint with Dustin Fuse. We got Marvel Us Disney, the podcast I do with Aaron Adams. Likewise, we have Looking at Lucasfilm with Dan Z, and I Want That with Shelley Valladolid. If you could head over to iTunes and rate and recommend not only Light the Fuse, but also the podcast you're listening to right now, Fine Tuning, that would be very, very helpful. Likewise, if you really, really, really like what you heard here tonight, if you want to head over to Bandcamp and subscribe, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Jim Hill Media. And Nancy also wants me to remind you guys that if you go on Facebook, you can find us at Jim Hill Media News. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll be back soon.